in this concept um, of our final virtue in our describing church on purpose and talking about what mature disciples cultivate. So this year we are walking through this series beginning this year because obviously it's gonna end up it's gonna end up continuing into next year. Um, but we've been walking through this describing church on purpose teaching series, and so this series, the point of this series is to um is to help us to first of all understand what it means at church on purpose to be a mature disciple of Jesus Christ. Once we finished here, then we will move to the next section, which is where we're going to be talking about what it means to be a committed member of the body of Christ at church on purpose. And then we'll wrap up this describing church on purpose series by talking about what servant leadership looks like at church on purpose. And going over these basics is really for the purposes of helping us to be crystal clear in our growth, crystal clear in our approach to maturity, in how we develop, how we are working together, and what we are working together to produce. Because often, unfortunately, too often in church, we get together under the guise of producing disciples of Jesus Christ, but we haven't had a discussion about what a disciple of Jesus Christ looks like. And so you have some people that are trying to make really good church folks. You have other people that are trying to make really good religious folks. You have other people that are trying to make really good this and really good that. And we haven't had a conversation about, when we come together, what are we looking to produce together, so that we can be effective and efficient in what it is that we produce, so that we can build the systems that are going to produce what it is we are looking to produce as we become a disciple factory for the kingdom. So we have talked about a lot through this process. We started off talking about what a mature disciple should know and understand. So we talked about the head of a disciple. And during that time, we talked about the fact that mature disciples should know and understand corporate salvation. They should know and understand personal salvation. They should know and understand the Bible, the storyline and the structure of the Bible. And they should know and understand basic biblical doctrine. And we walk through all of those lessons. If you missed those, then you can go back through our video archives and you can catch all of those. And then, so those were the four aspects of what a mature disciple should know and understand. Then we moved to the heart of a disciple, and we started talking about, well, what virtues should a mature disciple cultivate in their heart? What should be growing, and what is being produced in the heart of a mature disciple? And the criteria for this we identified from First Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13, which says, so now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so when we talk about the kind of virtues that should be produced in the heart of a disciple of Jesus Christ, we started looking at these three virtues: faith, hope, and love. And and we had some really good discussion about faith, about what faith really is, and we had a really good conversation about what hope is. We enjoyed, well, I have enjoyed just talking about and being able to view faith as settled confidence. Our that settled assurance in who God is, and what God has said and what God is going to do. And then a couple of weeks ago, looking at hope as confident expectation, and hope being faith that is applied to the future. And so, again, talking about just this idea that that you can have faith that faith does exist outside of hope, but there is no hope without faith, because hope is an aspect of faith. It's an element of faith. It's a component of faith. And so, this is really interesting because again, in the scripture in 1 Corinthians 13:13, Paul very clearly out of the three virtues says faith is great, hope is great, but the greatest of these three is this thing called love. And and the reason that I have been dragging out getting to this lesson is because it was, I'm not going to say it was easy, but there was a sense um of completion and assurance in attempting to define faith in simple terms that we could take away. Again, confident expectation, settled expectation. Um, there was a measure of assurance and confidence in being able to define hope for us and being able to clarify how hope is different from faith. But sweet Jesus, when you really stop to think about it, it is super hard to define love in a very simple way. And so tonight, we're going to begin this journey of just trying to understand love. This is supposed to be an overview. So, I need y'all to understand like how the structure and all of this is. Like these lessons are supposed to be overviews and introductions. So we're not supposed to spend too much time on anything because that's what regular Bible study at the church is for. So all of these things that we go through in this session, in this particular teaching series, you're going to continue to see these things in greater depth as we explore, as we continue to learn and grow beyond just this series. But this whole idea of love, like I didn't feel comfortable with trying to squeeze love into a single night. Although part of me, um, the schedule part of me um feels like that's what we need to do so that we can keep moving through the rest of it. But but the rub with that is just how important and how foundational understanding love is to our ability to understand God. Because scripture says that God is love. The essence of God's nature and the essence of his character is love. And if we misdefine love, if we misinterpret love, then we will start looking for God in places where he is not. We will start taking things that are not God and we will start worshiping them as though they are God. And it's really like I think this is one of those topics that we just can't put in the microwave because it is so foundational to our ability to really understand and comprehend. I mean, so it's so important. It's so important that the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 13, he makes it a point to emphasize while talking um while talking about this, he makes it a point to emphasize how doing the right things is a complete waste of time if it isn't done with love. He says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the beginning, verse 1, it says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, which is, speaking in tongues is one of those things that we like to try to use as an indicator of people's salvation. But Paul says, even if you speak in tongues, if you speak in heavenly tongues, if you speak in multiple earthly tongues, but you don't have love, he says, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. He says, and if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, again, like in our world today, these things that, if we're honest with ourselves, we would love to be able to do, and we would love to see in our lives. Like all of us want faith the size of a mustard seed to be able to tell the mountain move and it go jump into the sea. And, we want faith of a mustard seed to be able to heal and to be able to free and deliver people from oppression. And, we want to be able to understand the mysteries and the knowledge of the universe. And we want to be able to tell the future and know things about people and all this other kind of stuff. Like he says, if I had all of the superpowers that y'all wish you had, but I have love, I am nothing. And he says, if I give away all that I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, if I make the ultimate sacrifices, if I sacrifice everything that I have, including my very being, but I don't have love, I am nothing. That is how important love is. And so tonight, I'm sure most of you got the text message, but tonight we're going to wrestle a little bit, and we're going to wrestle together. So if you're in a place with a lot of background noise, then you're going to have to figure out how to make it work out, because we're going to talk tonight together. We're going to reason together about this thing called love. So before we jump into that, I want to share this. I want to share this video that I hope you find as entertaining as I did. Yeah, I think I'll share one now, and then I'll come back and share the other one later. So let's take a look at this.
Love is like over a gillion stuff. Helping someone even if you don't want to. When your parents or your teachers don't tell you to. Giving away stuff that you really, really like.
If they wanted toys, I'll share. Sale toys. It's smiling and saying good things about them.
I should say, you have very nice clothes on.
I hope my mommy. I played with another person on the playground when she didn't have anybody to play with.
When people are loving to me, I feel like I should do it to someone else. Because Jesus did the same for us.
Just like your daughter says you will have them do to you.
That you should treat the other one just like I've been treated before. Not like bad, but the kind I've been good treated.
Nobody really wants to play with somebody who's being mean. Being kind is helping those in need. Give them some food. Get fish and bread and green beans and peas and apples.
I'll ask my mom or dad, can we go get food for this hungry person that I found?
Rob is hugging your mom and helping her wash the dishes. I just get the water thing and just spray them.
People show me love by holding my hand, and they also give me a kiss around the head when I'm asleep very lightly. There's people that don't get love in other places of the world.
You help them. Just help people.
If we show people love, they can spread it all around the world.
Okay, come here, Mommy. I'll show her something. I'll show you something. Come here, Mommy. See close.
So that was adorable. I enjoy that. One, I just enjoy listening to kids talk about anything because their perspective is always so insightful, and they are, they're always able to view things from such a pure perspective, and so I really I really enjoyed that. But I played that video because I wanted you all to begin thinking for yourselves about how you answer this particular question. Um, what is love? What is love? Um, so one little boy in the video said, when you give them fish and bread and green beans and peas and apples, that's love. Um, but let's talk just a little bit about that particular question. What is love?
It's not peas, because peas is not that good. So I don't want no peas. So if he gives it to me, I'm not gonna feel like it's love. Because I don't like peas. But I think that, like, I know that they say, like, I know in the Bible it says, God is love, but I think it's like when you like truly care about somebody, like unconditionally, like no matter what they do, and even if it's some really messed up stuff, like you still have love for them and you like still find it in your heart to forgive them. Like, I think that's love.
Mm-hmm. Thank
I
you
don't
for
know.
sharing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Love is self-sacrificial giving, whether that's physically, emotionally, financially, or otherwise. And that is, of course, patterned after God himself, who demonstrated that in the greatest demonstration of love in the giving of the Son, Jesus Christ, that it was a self-sacrificial gift. And so that is the essence, the core of what love is.
Thank you. Somebody else.
But I did all of that on top of, I just would say love is an action that you choose to do.
I was thinking that love is the first thing you learn. It's the first thing that is given to you in essence, and it's important in how it is given and how it is received, and it can be the foundation, whether it be positive or negative, and it can have an impact either way.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I think that love is, like Quinn said, self-sacrificing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not so much concerned about yourself You're more concerned with the people around you or the people that you claim to love or show love to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else? We had a lot of spectators on the line tonight. Okay. All right. So when we talk about this idea of love, I appreciate all of your Sunday school answers. um and I say that because we are in I mean, obviously we're in Bible study, so we're working to look at things from the from the biblical perspective. Um so let's ask this question. What is love to in our society? What is love in our society?
Like, you mean the social, the norms of love?
Yeah. So
Oh,
what
buying
does love look
stuff.
like in America?
Oh, buying us stuff
Mm.
and taking us out
Mm-hmm.
and like, well, from the other person's perspective, it would be like if they do, like, let's say some messed up things to the other person, but that person forgives them, it'll
Mm-hmm.
be like forgiveness, that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness. It would be like taking nice pictures on social media and like taking trips and stuff like that. But that's not my definition of love, but that's society definition of a little bit, because I do like gifts.
I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that. And those of you that are joining us on Facebook there, if you want to drop some stuff in the chat, YouTube as well, if you want to drop some stuff in the chat to contribute to the conversation, please do.
Yeah, but I think those are the main things that like stick out. Oh, and nice pictures. Like when people go out and stuff like that, and they like to take nice pictures, and like it's really like a photo shoot. Technically, like in society, like love is a photo shoot. So if it looks nice on Instagram and social media, then I feel like people think that that's like true love.
Got you. So it's about image.
Image, yes, image.
Thank you.
So she took all of everything that I was gonna say.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Dang it, Ty, dang it. No, I guess you would say for society, love is a fantasy.
Elaborate.
I mean, because you see, as a kid, you grow up, and you talked about this before, but as a kid, I know I grew up thinking of love like a fairy tale. My Prince Charming's gonna come swoop me off my feet, and we're gonna just live happily ever after, and it's gonna be birds flying and chirping and singing along the way, all of that stuff. Just thinking of like fantasy, like Ty said, pictures on Facebook, of couples together, boo loving and all that other stuff. Yeah, I guess that's it. Fantasy is not showing the ups and the downs of love.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd add that love in society, according to the world, in large society, love is like an approximation of what genuine and true love is. So what I mean by that is that, we've all experienced love at the hands of, say, loved ones, but we've also experienced great hurt and things that are unloving. And so, in that sense, it's an approximation because, it's being made in the image of God, we do have the capacity to demonstrate, to do loving things, but it's not in us to be loving all the time because of the influence of sin on the hearts of men. And so love is actually demonstrated as an approximation of what genuine love is, but in kind of in concert with what Janae said, people think love is a Disney movie. They think that which they grew up seeing on television and in movies, that must be love, when in fact it's not. There may have some elements of it, like I said, approximations, but I think that's about as good as one can get, as close as one can get to what love is without God.
Thank you. Somebody else was getting ready to say something. Anise, go ahead.
I was going to say that society has a self-gratifying illusion going on as far as love is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
That love is going to do this and that for you, and it's going to make you this and that, and it's what you want, and it's for you and not for the other person. It's what that person can do for you. And I say illusion because the majority of the people that try to do the things or be the things for you can't maintain those long term. And that's what causes the breakdown of relationships.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Thank you. Anybody else? What is society's perception of love? Society's understanding of love? One more person. Somebody is sitting there looking at that unmute button and they're like, somebody else is going to jump in first. Nobody else is going to jump in first. So you might as well go ahead and unmute and go ahead and say what you got to say so we can move on. I sure am glad I've grown comfortable with silence. One more person. What is society's perspective of what love is?
Twisted.
Why do you say that?
Well, because I think that if you don't meet people's expectations, sometimes I don't know. It's almost as though if you fall short, I don't know what I want to say. I'm sorry.
No, I
I
think
was going somewhere else with that. I apologize, but at least I took up the time.
You didn't take up the time. You actually bring up a very good point about love in our society because, especially in this cancel culture that we live in today, people love you one minute and then the next minute, they don't love you. And so love in our society can be very fickle. It can be very inconsistent. It can be very sometimey and very convenient. I find it really interesting though that when making the assessment about love's interpretation in society, that that for the most part, you all's perspective was very relational in terms of like exclusionary, like what you do for someone that you are in a relationship with, type of interaction. And and that's really interesting, but it's also, kind of common. I mean, we have a whole holiday that's quote unquote the love holiday, that centers on this romantic love between two people. But when we look at love in our society, we see a lot of the stuff that you all shared. But we also see, people's love being demonstrated not only for people but for things. um we see, um again, people's love being fickle, being today, here today, gone tomorrow. um we see people's love being very much so conditional. um we see people utilizing love, uh and the term love and the actions and the behaviors of love, to support abusive behaviors, and interaction. The person that punches you in the face and then turns around and says, I didn't mean to hurt you, I love you. um we have even taken love to the point to where, love, supposedly, if you don't support me in everything that I choose to do, regardless of how detrimental it might be to my life and to others, if you don't support me in everything that I do, then you don't love me. That is what we have turned into, as a society. And and love is one of those words where faith and hope are much easier to arrive at an agreed upon definition. Love is one of those things where it's one of those words where people use it all the time, and we so consistently and so often assume we know what the other person means when they say that word, because we have formulated such a clear definition of love for ourselves. Now y'all can sit here and you can not unmute and you can be doing whatever you're doing, but everybody has their own definition of love, and everybody has an understanding of what love is in our society. Whether you can find the words to put it together, whether you've ever had to find the words to put it together, the reality is, especially if you live in the United States of America, you have an understanding of what love is based on America's objectives and standards. And off of that, you have formulated your own definition and understanding of love. Now, fortunately, you all are in Bible study, so you have the benefit of having the perspective of the Bible and the perspective of the kingdom and a perspective of of what true love is. But even then, we still are in the process of formulating our own understanding and own definition and own interpretation of what love is and what love is applied. Because again, like, I find it very interesting, and you all said some of these things, but I find it very interesting that when Paul chooses to talk about how necessary love is, he says again in First Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1, he says, if I speak with the tongues of men and of angels. So if I can speak eloquently and I can communicate effectively, but I don't communicate in love. If I speak in the heavenly language, but if I speak in any earthly language, and I can communicate with people of different cultures and different backgrounds, and I can adjust my speech to talk to all different kinds of people, but I don't have love when I do that, then I'm just making a whole bunch of noise. Here's another one. He says, if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, if I have all the superpowers that everybody is trying to get, if I know what's coming down the pipe, and I understand the mysteries, and I'm super smart and super intelligent, and I have all of this faith and all of this belief and trust in God, but I don't have love, he says, I am nothing. And then here's the kicker: if I give away all that I have, And if I deliver my body up to be burned, if I make the ultimate sacrifice, if I give everything that I have to give, but I don't do it with love, I gain nothing. And so here's the interesting part, and here's the part that I've been wrestling with, because we know what actions are loving actions and which actions are not loving actions. Interestingly enough, it is easier to define love by talking about what it is and what it isn't, rather than actually understanding what it is, which is why in verse 4, Paul goes on to say, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy or boast, it is not arrogant or rude, it does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful, it does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And the reason that I'm talking about this, the reason that we're looking at this, the reason that we're having this conversation this evening is because I think we need to dig deeper into our understanding of love. I think we need to ask more questions, because love isn't just the action, but love, under love, behind love, girding love is a deeper motivating factor that drives the action, which is a manifestation of love. Jesus demonstrates love in that while we were still sinners, he dies for the ungodly. Jesus, God demonstrates love in giving his son, and his son giving his life. The love produces the action that is an outgrowth of it. But what is the it? What is the love that motivates all of that? What is the love that all of that emanates from? Because again, remember, we're talking about virtues. We're talking about fruit that grows in our hearts, that is intertwined and interwoven in our character. And it is these virtues that then inform and produce the actions that are indicative of faith, hope, and love. And in our world today, one of the biggest challenges I think that we have as believers is not only looking at this concept of love, but really trying to understand this one. It's trying to understand godly love. And we really shouldn't have to put that qualifier in there, because God is love. And so when we talk about love, it should really be generally understood that we are automatically talking about God, because God is love. But because we live in a fallen world with and one of the most direct and impactful effects of sin is the perversion of the perfect. Sin comes in to corrupt. It perverts, it alters that which is perfect. And so what we actually end up getting produced by the world is a poor representation and reflection of what God intended as perfect, which is why nobody could do for us what Jesus does, why God had to come do what he did himself, because in a fallen and a broken world, it was impossible to produce perfect love. So what is godly love? because that is the standard for a disciple of Jesus Christ. Again, if we just sit here and we have a conversation about what is love, then in America, our minds can go to all different kind of places and spaces. And some of those things can be really good. But to Quentin's point, they're going to be just a portion, just a snippet, just a segment of what the totality of love really is. And as disciples of Jesus Christ, we want to not only we want to understand the totality of love so that we can receive the totality of love, so that we can share the totality of love. Now, America will have us, in our society, will have us only sharing love with people that we like. That ain't love. That is not the fullness of love. Love will have us only being patient with the people that we want to be patient with and writing off everybody else as a dodo. That's not the totality of love. Love will have us sacrificing for the people that we want to sacrifice for. That's not the totality of love. America will have us praying for the people that we want to pray for. That is not the totality of love. And when we say that we love somebody, we really have to start thinking at a completely different level about what that really means. Because unfortunately, even as the church in America, we have embraced and adopted American ideals over those of the kingdom. And because of that, we have grown comfortable existing in a space of incomplete love. Our standard has been lowered so much that we will sit silent on the sidelines while people are being shot down in the streets by the people that are paid to protect them. But if you make me put a 4x6 piece of cloth on my face, I'm gonna be out in the streets in the middle of the summer heat on the sidewalk, making sure y'all know I don't want that to happen. The love of America, and it was said before. Anise said it. That self-gratifying illusion becomes so much about convenience for us. Like, I love the people that love me. I love the people that do things for me. I love the people that I do things for when I find joy in doing things for those people. It's all about how it gratifies and how it satisfies us. But love is bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. And I'm so grateful that the love of Jesus that is demonstrated on Calvary wasn't incomplete love. Because if it was incomplete love, I know me, and I know that there is nothing that I have done, would have done, could do, am doing right now. Like, nothing I have done and nothing that I am qualifies me for the kind of love that Jesus demonstrates for us on Calvary. Nothing. And if we really understand and embrace and grab hold of this thing, this standard, this expectation of godly love, the kind of transformation it would have in our lives. Because here's the thing. We struggle so much with receiving the love of God because many of us struggle seeing the value in ourselves enough to believe that we are worthy of the love that he gives at the level that he gives it. And we disqualify ourselves from embracing the totality of his love. And so we struggle with our value, and we struggle with our self-image and our self-concept, and we struggle with our identity, and we struggle with the way that we're made and the way that we're shaped, really because we have a hard time understanding that someone could love us as we are right now. That somebody could look at us, that somebody could know everything about us, including our thoughts that we never share with anybody else, and could love us so much that they would be willing to die for us so that we could live. We have a hard time receiving that kind of love. And we disqualify ourselves from receiving the fullness of the love that Jesus has for us. And because of that, we end up doing ourselves and those around us a disservice because we can't give what we have not received. We can't give unconditional love when we have not opened ourselves to being able to receive unconditional love. I just hope that as a church, as a body, that we will find that underlying motivator, that we will figure out, that we will be able to comprehend, that we will be able to connect what it is underneath all of this, what it is underneath God loving the world so much that he gave his only son, what it is underneath Jesus loving us so much that he would give his life, what it is underneath that motivates those behaviors, that motivates the sacrifice, that motivates the voluntary inconvenience, that motivates the forgiveness, that motivates the patience, that motivates the kindness. Is love the motivation? What in the world is love? There are three primary terms that are used for love in the Bible, and we're going to look at those next week, along with a couple of other Greek terms for love that help us to categorize and interpret and understand the different ways that love manifests in culture and the different ways that it is defined. And we're going to look at that in conjunction in relation to God's expectation for our love, for his standard for the love that is produced in our lives. But I'm gonna tell you this: going through all of this is not gonna do any good for any of us if we don't grow to the point to where we can open ourselves to being wholly and totally loved by God. Where we can be totally honest and authentic and transparent, first and foremost with him. And understand that if his love is going to be unconditional, if the love of God is unconditional and freely given to us without condition, if his love is given to us without condition, salvation is given based upon the condition of accepting the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. But if his love is given to us freely without condition, then what does that mean for who you are and for how you begin to see yourself and the value that is contained within you? Because once we begin to allow ourselves, our value to be defined by God, then we can start to see that value in ourselves. And when we start seeing that value in ourselves, then we can start seeing that value in other people as well. You know, the that common term or that common saying, hurt people hurt people. Whether you like it or not, the golden rule applies in life because we often end up doing to others. Um, Let me put it like this: we do to others what we want done to us in many cases, and we give to others what has been given to us. And if you've been giving yourself a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurity, a lot of degradation and devaluing, you're ultimately going to end up giving that to others. And here's why this is so important. So again, in 1 Corinthians 13, Paul talks about tongues. He talks about prophecy. He talks about understanding mysteries and knowledge. He talks about super amazing faith. He talks about sacrifice of giving everything that he has away. He talks about even giving up his body um, to be burned of all things. He talks about all of those things. But what was it that Jesus said would be the determining factor for how people would know that we're his disciples? He said, if we have love one for another, the love that we share amongst ourselves as brothers and sisters in Christ and in the kingdom, that kind of love is the banner to the world that we are followers of Christ. Not speaking in tongues, not having the gift of prophecy, not being able to understand mysteries and not being super smart and not having mega faith, not how much we give away, not even giving away ourselves. But he said the love that we have for one another. Now, how do we know that we're doing this right if we don't know what love is? If we don't know what he meant when he said love and how that manifests and how that shapes culture and how that affects us and how that impacts us and how that affects and impacts one another. We have been programmed intentionally in our country, in our world, to believe, as Janae talked about earlier, the fantasy of love. The happily ever after. The everything is perfect and everything is beautiful all the time. We've been programmed to believe that. But what defines love for Church on Purpose is not Disney. It is our deliverer. It is not Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty. All very creepy stories when you think about it. But it's not the Disney canon that defines love for us, and that should be establishing the standard of love and creating and establishing the expectations for love for us. But it is Jesus, it is God, it is what he teaches us about the kingdom and the culture that exists in the kingdom that establishes the expectations and the standards of love for us. The tough part love ain't about happiness. I know Al Green saying love and happiness, but love ain't about happiness. The question I want you to be thinking about over this next week before we get back together next week, and I'm going to want a couple of you to share at the beginning of next week. Love ain't about happiness. What is love about? What is the end goal of love? And remember, you can have everything else, all of this super great stuff, but if you don't have love, it's worth nothing. So what is the end goal of love? Because once we understand that, once we can appreciate that, once we can clarify that, once we can agree upon that, then it ought to help us as a community to be intentional about the incorporation of love into our culture and being able to reap the benefits of how that manifests among us. In many cases, it will manifest in sacrifice. In other cases, it will manifest in support. In some cases, it'll manifest in investment. In some cases, it'll manifest in different ways. But what is the end goal of love? What is the end goal of godly love? What is it doing? What is it producing in us? We know that faith produces perseverance. We know that hope produces endurance. What is love producing? What is the end goal? What is the end game? Paul says in verse 8, love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it'll pass away too. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part that I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. But the greatest of these is love. What in the world is godly love? So we want to walk through the outline specifically next Wednesday and keep digging into this. And so while you're thinking about what the outcome of love is, what love is trying to produce, I want you to be thinking about not only what love is, but also be thinking about what love is not. And we'll chop it up about that next Wednesday. So it is 7:30 for those of you that have been joining us on our other platforms. We want to thank y'all for hanging out with us this evening. And I didn't know y'all were putting stuff in the comments. But for those of you that have joined us online on other platforms, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We hope you'll come back and join us next Wednesday as we continue to dig into this idea and this concept of love as we continue our Describing Church on Purpose series. We look forward to the conversation, the dialogue, and we pray as always that